Guys? Fat Archon here, bringing another 40k video. Today I'm be covering what I consider some of the very best Chaos Space Marine units. At the end of this, I also have a few tournament lists I'm going to load so you guys can see what the winning armies are looking like. As usual, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, I have a quick shout out to make. So I got another channel member, which is insane. It's all happening over just the last few days. So Timothy, thank you so much, dude. Like from the bottom of my heart, like thank you so much. It's awesome to see people like enjoying what I'm doing and want to like support me that way. So I really do appreciate that. If anybody else would care to support the channel, I will post a link to my Patreon down below. Of course, you can become like a YouTube member as well. That said, we got a lot to go through, so I'll jump right into it. I guess I should point out a few quick notes, though. So first of all, this is kind of funny. Before I started this video, preparing for this video, I had like over 30 data sheets originally. I knew I had to trim some of the fat, but guys, isn't that a great sign? We truly are like blessed by the dark gods with our codex. It's genuinely hard to find like a bad unit profile. The only one off the top of my head would be like Chaos Spawn. Those are absolute trash. I would never run those unless it was like a meme. Speaking of, so on that topic, if I miss a particular unit, so like Chaos Terminators, I wouldn't be surprised if some people like, yeah, think I missed them. If I miss a particular unit, please leave a comment below, not only for me, but for other people to see. That way they're getting like multiple points of views. They're not only hearing like what I have to say. The channel's all about like teaching people the armies and like to improve at the game. So by all means, man, if I miss something important, make sure you bring it up. One other thing I should point out, so the data cards I'm using, these are from the index, so some of them are going to be out of date. That said, when that comes up, I'll be sure to point it out, and if it's like a big deal, I'll be sure to like put a note on the screen. That said, though, we got a lot to go through, so yeah, let's get into it. We're starting off with a banger, though, so freaking Chaos Cultists, man. I think these are one of the top units in the entire book. They're fantastic, man, and it all comes down to how cheap they are. Now, these are one that had their profile changed, so you don't have like any loadout options anymore. You only got auto pistols and brutal assault weapons. Honestly, I don't really see that as a nerf, man. I would rather them stay at the same price than go up even a single point. So to me, it was like, we almost won, because it would have been worse. Even up to like 60 points, even 55, that would have sucked. The reason these guys are so awesome is A, they're ultra cheap, and B, they have a fantastic freaking ability. So, for the Dark Gods, basically you get sticky objectives. At the end of the command phase, if this unit is within range of an objective that you control, it becomes sticky. What's beautiful about that means that they can die, that doesn't matter. Better yet, maybe get like Value City. If they're able to get into no man's land and sticky another objective, like holy cow, man, for 50 points, that's amazing. Obviously, they can screen, they can do all sorts of stuff like that. I should mention too, so I'll try to bring up any like combos and legions that like certain units work with as we go through this. So Cultist Mob, you might think that maybe they work with like Chaos Cults. Not really, that's more of an Accursed Cultist thing. For Cultist Mob, where they really like pop is Pactbound Zealots, so Word Bearers. What you'd always do, honestly, at least for one squad, you mark them Nurgle, you put them on your home field objective, and the reason you do that is some people are going to try to like Death Guard with their Plague Burst Crawlers. They got artillery. They're going to try to clear out your home field holder like turn one. You say, nope, pay the 1 CP, and suddenly they can't be shot at all. That's a big deal, man. Even on a 50-point unit, like that is worth it. That's basically the standard like strategy. It has been all through the index. So it's mainly for if you're a newer player or you're big into like Word Bearers or whatever. That said, they have a terrible profile, so 6-inch move, T3, only a 6-up save. They're going to be dying like flies. But again, we don't care at all. I very much think these are an auto-include in like 99.9% of lists. I can't think of a list I've written in the last like year that didn't include at least one of these. Even Soulforged Warpack, even detachments that don't normally like buff them at all, I still bring them along because again, dude, it's so important that you stick to your home field objective, then you don't care at all what happens to them after. Ooh, next up, all right, we got another good one. So, Accursed Cultists. Yet again, they're really freaking cheap, man, and that's such a perk. What's beautiful about that is you can run them either MSU, so minimum size, or you can run them in bricks, and either way, you're getting, like, extra efficiency. A lot of that's going off the back of the Torments. So you get Mutants and Torments. Torments are the big ones. Torments have an excellent profile for the price. So T4, 3 wounds. They do have a 6-up feel no pain and a few other abilities we'll get to here in a moment. Their melee, though, is exceptional. They're basically, like, possessed. They get a D6 plus 2 attacks, hit on 4s, unfortunately, but strength 5, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. Again, for only 85 points, like, that's a steal. Now, this is another unit that very much had, like, changes in the codex, so they don't get a Cursed Horde anymore. They don't, like, regen anymore, which kind of sucks. That said, I think they got buffed, actually. The big one, they got Scouts, dude. They got Scouts 6-inch. That is such a big deal. Now we have native access to, like, scouting. If you guys watch my, like, how to deploy for turn 1 video, you know how important I think, like, Scouts, like, infiltrators and all that sort of stuff are. These guys directly shore that up, and that means that they work in literally any detachment. On top of that, they also got a Berserker move. So in the shooting phase, anytime a model dies, you get to move d6 inches towards your opponent. You can end an engagement range as well, which is big. What's beautiful about that, you have both 1 wound and 3 wound profiles, man. So if somebody shoots you with a bolter, or better yet, they shoot you with like a las cannon, something huge, you just plink off one of the mutants, one of the ones you don't even care about, and move d6 inches towards your opponent. Your opponent might even be scared to like shoot at him because he knows you're gonna move closer each time he does it. Maybe they can see on an objective. Like there's so many ways that's a big deal. For legions that they pop off with, obviously Chaos Cults. So Chaos Cults have a stratagem for 1 command point. You can even reroll all hits, all wounds. You can attach a Dark Commune to them on top of that, so they get the advance and charge, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. Like, how many freaking buffs can you put on one unit? I think it's a big deal. It knocks them up from like pretty good to like a fantastic unit, like one of the better units in the game. Accursed Cultists, like I said, they can work in any list. If you need scouts and you're not bringing like, I don't know, demons or something like that, or you're not using like enhancement for it, very much like, at least like consider these guys. Ooh, next up, another banger. So, are you guys noticing a trend here? So, Legionaries. So, what's funny, man, if you guys watch my 2023 version of this video, I didn't even mention, like, Legionaries. They were terrible back then. If you guys remember, they were 100 points originally, and Chosen were 120 points. It was kind of ridiculous, so you would, like, never bring these guys ever. But, man, how times have changed. Legionaries, I would argue, are one of the very best battle line in the game. With Pariah Nexus here, too, like, battle line is, like, even more important, so, like, you almost want to, like, almost have to be including these in your list. That said, don't forget, Cultist Mob are also battle line, but Legionaries bring, like, way more, like, value even on top of that. They have a damn good profile, so you got the Marine stat line baseline, and then they have exceptionally good melee for the price you're paying. Now, I have had some people reach out to me asking about running them range. No, dude, you would never run them range. First of all, their ability doesn't work there, so you're, like, losing, like, half the reason you bring these guys. Second of all, their melee's way better than a bolt gun will ever be. Now, I will say, whether you run a 5-man or a 10-man, you do want to bring some heavy weapons. So, like, I always bring a las cannon along with these guys. Las cannon and maybe, like, a melta-gun if I'm going anti-vehicle. You always go Havoc, Havoc autocannon is the other route you can go. Always bring one of those, but the rest of them you give chain swords and as many heavy melee weapons as you can. Now, do be aware, whether you're running MSU or full bricks, you can only bring 2 heavy melee weapons, so a lot of people do lean towards, like, MSU, towards the 5-mans for it. That said, you gotta think, if you're able to, like, stack stratagems, or, like, character abilities, or any of that, like, you still get values out of bricks of them, so both ways are, like, valid. Now, where these guys really pop off is their ability. Veterans of the Long War. Each time a model in this unit targets an enemy unit with a melee attack, you reroll wound rolls of 1. If the target is within range of an objective marker, you can reroll all the wound rolls. What's beautiful about that, first of all, it keys off with other legions. So like Renegade Raiders, oh my god, are they gonna love that, dude. Renegade Raiders, you're already getting +1 AP when you're in, targeting something on objective. What's even more awesome, in my opinion, characters, attached characters get to take advantage of that. So now suddenly your characters are rerolling all the wounds. If you're Renegade Raiders, you get +1 AP. If you're doing like Deceptors, you get to your characters like infiltrated 9 inches from your opponent. Like there's lots of beautiful things about the Legionaries. Again, with Pariah Nexus here, battle line is like ultra important, guys. Legionaries are one of the very best in the game. I could see like, I don't know, Rubik's gonna run for the money, I guess, but there's not many that I would argue are like better. They're just so good, man, so utilitarian. And you know, obviously you got other like bricks that are like scaring the crap out of your opponent. They're gonna have a hard time choosing who to kill. Very much Legionaries belong in the vast majority of lists. Next up, so on a similar vein, we got Chosen. So Chosen, it's funny, man. They went from the kings of like 40k to they got super nerfed and like nobody ran them. Now they're back to being like good again. So they're very similar Legionaries, but they bring some really good like perks on top of it. The biggest perk, in my opinion, is that stat line. So it's similar, so 6-inch move, T4, 3-up save, that's all the same. But then they're 3 wounds each, man. That is such a big deal. 3 wounds, like 2 damage weapons going into these guys, like freaking hate it. Again, any attached characters or any stratagems, like you're getting even more value on top of it. They have really good melee, so cursed weapons. 4 attacks, strength 5, -2 AP, 1 damage each. What's beautiful is if you buff up that AP, like damn, dude, then they really do become like ultra little shredders. Renegade Raiders, you're just going to AP 3, and this will apply to any and every unit I show you here. Any and every unit, if you see like low AP especially, don't forget you can bring a Terminator Sorcerer along, and he gives you an additional 1 AP. So you knock these guys up to 4 AP for 125 points. They become one of the better like melee shredders in the game at that point. You can also give 1 per 5 a Power Fist, which you pretty much always do. On top of that, they have a really good ability. So, Chosen Marauders. This unit is eligible to shoot and declare charge in a turn in which advanced or fell back. Again, that gets transferred to the attached character, so that's a big deal, man. Advance and charge is one of like the more important like abilities in the Chaos Army. We have so many units that are little like shredders in melee, especially for characters that, yeah, dude, that basically saves you from having to spend a command point, or maybe you're running a legion that doesn't even have access to that. That's a big deal there. These guys love being in Rhinos. They're fantastic there. You drop them out. What's cool, too, if your Rhino explodes, or maybe you got to do an emergency disembarkation, well, you have 3 wound profiles, man. They'd be lucky to kill 1 or 2 bases, even like the worst case scenario for the most part. They also have a Chaos icon. I should have mentioned that for Legionaries. Chaos icons definitely gain value. If you're doing like Pactbound Zealots or anything like that, like, yeah, dude, you want to be rerolling your Dark Pacts. Definitely don't want to be like hurting yourself if you can help it. Chosen are definitely back to being like usable again. I use them all the time. I love them in bricks, especially if you run like Veterans of the Long War, you give them like fight first. That's a huge deal. Renegade Raiders, yet again, that extra AP is like huge on them, really turns them into little blenders. Chosen, definitely worth like looking at. Another beautiful thing for like you new players out there, dude, you run your Legionaries as Chosen like all day long. So long as I have like a pistol and a sword, like they're good to go. You know, try to like spruce them up, paint them a little different or something like that. But yeah, man, they're easy. Basically, if you have Legionaries, you also have Chosen. Next up, ooh, we got one of my favorite units in the world, so good luck telling me that these aren't good. Like, screw you if you think that. So, okay, so some people aren't into Possessed like I am, but I do think they're really good, actually. I think they're, like, actually exceptional, and all that comes down to their stat line. 9-inch move, toughness 6, 3-up save, and a 5-up invul, and then 3 wounds each. These guys are only 125 points as well, so I think that's, like, extra valuable. That 9-inch move is probably the most important bit. A lot of missions that you play, they're going to have an objective within 9 inches of you. That's a big deal with cheap little infantry like this. They work both MSU and as bricks. They have really good melee, and in fact, I would say these guys are one of the best, like, anti-orc units in the game, truthfully, because orcs have terrible armor, and that's the big downside of these guys, so they only have AP 1. So they have hideous mutations, 4 attacks, strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage each. Like I mentioned earlier, you can buff that AP up like pretty easily, man. Bring a Terminator Sorcerer, go the Renegades, you know, maybe you got stratagem for it. Like, it's not that big a deal. On top of that, they have Unholy Bloodshed. So unfortunately, it did get nerfed, but once a game, you can give them Devastating Wounds, where that really pops off. So the best way to run these guys is Pactbound Zealots, so Word Bearers. You run a brick of them, you run them undivided, and then you spend the 1 command point to give them reroll all wounds. On average, when you have 5-up exploding hits and the reroll all wounds and dev wounds, on average, you do, I believe it's 22 damage to any unit in the game. It'd be a toughness 50, like Insano Knight or whatever. It doesn't matter, dude. You're doing 22 damage on average. I think that's insanely valuable, and it's definitely, like, if you're running Pactbound Zealots, I would be super duper, like, considering these guys for pretty much every single list. They also work MSU, so for other legions, and even Pactbound, MSU is perfectly fine as well. Again, dude, they're great little, like, primary holders, and they can flip objectives, like, pretty well. And anything that doesn't have good armor or like toughness 10, they're going to shred right through, man. Yeah, Possessed, I think they're fantastic. People like underestimate them because the Unholy Bloodshed got like nerfed, like people quit looking at them. I think you're crazy, man. Definitely take another look at them. 9-inch move, toughness 6, not toughness 5, toughness 6 and 3 wounds. Very much worth 125 points. Next up, onto like heavy support. These guys are a banger, dude. Freaking Havocs. I used to rarely run them because they were too expensive before, and you would just bring like a Predator or whatever. At 125 points, and the fact that they're an infantry profile, these guys gain so much freaking value. So I have an alright profile. So again, they're infantry. They move through wall. That's huge. So when you deploy them, you can keep them out of line of sight, like easy peasy. But they do only have 5-inch move, toughness 5, which is like interesting. A 3-up save and 2 wounds each. So they're basically Marines, but with toughness 5. For their heavy weapons, you got a lot of options. I would always specialize this unit, so don't bring like a variety unless like, you know, you only own 1 kit or whatever. Normally how I do it, often I'll bring 2 separate units of them. One of them with las cannons and the other with the chain cannons. I think it's awesome, dude, because then you have like, you know, troubleshooters. So you need anti-tank, cool, do the las cannons. You need anti-orc, anti-horde, anti-infantry, cool, do the chain cannons. Don't forget, you can give them like lethal hits. So even with those chain cannons, man, you still be plinking wounds off like even Imperial Knight. You'll still plink wounds off of them. Yet again, there's ways to like stack up the AP. Renegade Raiders especially love these guys. You put them in a transport, you drop them off, they get to reroll all their hits, all their wounds. Like, that's a pretty big deal. Also, they have stabilization talons. So basically, they ignore any like minuses to hit or any modifiers to their ballistic skill. So they're always hitting on 3s. Again, with the sustained hits or the lethals if you need them, these guys gain even more value. I think the fact you can toss them in Rhinos, the fact they're infantry, the fact they're so small, the fact they're so cheap, Havocs are one of the like premier anti-tank in our army. I think they're fantastic. Ooh, all right, next up, I think we're getting on to, yeah, all right, so Jetpack Infantry. These are some of the very best units for CSM in the entire game, in fact. So we'll start off with Raptors. So both of these guys are great. One's a little better than the other, but Raptors. These guys are so freaking amazing, man. For 85 points, for 5 points more than Legionary, you're getting so much value. 12-inch move on a freaking Marine profile, that is such a big deal, man. Being able to move through walls with 12-inch move helps directly with scoring, and that's mainly what these guys are for. I don't personally, like, use them that much for, like, damage. That said, we'll get in a moment. They can definitely do some, like, yeah, do some pain to people, but that 12-inch move and the deep strike they have on top of that, they become little, like, scoring, like, masters, man. That's why I like to vote them to. Whether I need to deep strike them behind my opponent to do actions, or just run into the primary or no man's land to do actions as well, they like bring value in every sense of the word. Again, only 85 points. That is such a good deal. Such a good deal. If Legionaries didn't have their Veterans of Long War ability, I would bring these every single time, aside from the fact that they're battle line, but otherwise I'd bring these every single time. Now, for their damage output, it's pretty good, man. So you can give them 2 special weapons. So typically, you're going to give them 2 Melt-A-Guns, and that's fantastic. That makes them like anti-everything. Versus vehicles, if you roll the 5s, you still do the wounds. Never forget you got sustained hits or lethals if you need them. You can also go Plasma if you can go anti-infantry, or Flamers if anti-chaff. Typically, you're almost always going to go Melt-A-Gun, but again, you got the other options. What's cool too is they can hold their own in melee, so they all have the chain swords, and then you can give the leader a Power Fist, which is basically how I always do it. Leader has Power Fist and a Plasma Pistol, and then I have 2 Meltas, and then you got the 2 chain swords. So yeah, dude, even versus, especially versus like chaff and like screens and stuff, they'll still blend them up like pretty well. On top of that, they have pretty fun abilities. So fearsome. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time that enemy unit takes a battle shock or leadership test, subtract 1 from the result. So the second part of that, the leadership test, that's really rare. Like 90% of these abilities only affect battle shock, which like doesn't always come up. With these guys, maybe I got like a mirror match, so somebody else is using like dark packs or whatever. Maybe you're fighting Soulforged Warpack, like that'd be a big deal there. That definitely adds up. On top of it, they got Terrifying Assault. So at the start of the fight phase, each enemy unit within engagement range of 1 or more of these units must take a battle shock test. Over time, I've come to learn that like battle shock tests are actually pretty valuable. They're not the greatest thing ever. They're unreliable. That's the big issue. But they are pretty awesome, man. They can prevent people from using like defensive stratagems. It can help you flip objectives and help you with secondaries. Like there's a million reasons that's good. For Legion that these guys pop off with, it should be pretty obvious. Dread Talons. Dread Talons are gonna like, dude, you just bring 3 of these automatically with every single Dread Talon list. They have the stratagem where you can come in 3 inches away from somebody and then force a battle shock test. You get -1 just from their detachment rule, and then you get an additional -1 from these guys' fearsome ability. Like, damn, dude, yeah, you're gonna be forcing like battle shocks like left and right. Raptors, I think they're almost an auto-include. They're really close to an auto-include. Sometimes you can't fit them in the list, but in most cases, I do try to get them in there. A really common one I've been using, so my Soulforged Warpack, I bring a few of these every single time, because I need scoring hardcore. I don't want to devote my really expensive units to like have to do actions and stuff. Nope, that's what the Raptors are there for. And again, for 85 points, I would argue they're one of the best like infantry in the entire game, honestly. Next up, so even better, if you guys know anything about CSM, you know about Warp Talons. These are like the premier like melee unit in the entire game currently. So they got a huge buff. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. So same stat line as the Raptors, except they do have a 5-up in-ball, so that's awesome. They're a little bit more resilient. And then they have super duper good melee. So they got the Warp Claws. So they're twin linked, so you're rerolling all the wounds, 4 attacks, strength 5, -2 AP, 1 damage each. Just like the Chosen, you can buff up that armor piercing like up to the sky, man. You can get to 4 AP like easy peasy. The fact that you're rerolling all the wounds and you have dark packs on top of that, these guys are gonna shred like anything. It could be like freaking like Mega Knobs or whatever. You're still gonna shred them like pretty well with the Warp Talons. Dude, and they're extra cheap currently. Only 110 points, like that is a steal. Now, why they really pop is because they got buffed. So Warp Flames no longer exist. Now how it works, at the end of the fight phase, if you had been eligible to fight, so you either clear out the unit, which will be pretty common, or you use like a stratagem, like fall back out of combat, whatever the reason is, you get to go back into strategic reserves. That is such a big deal. That is one of the best abilities in the game. Uppy Downy, as we call it, is like huge. There's multiple reasons for it too. You got the obvious, you know, helps you with positioning, helps you with scoring, flanking, all that sort of stuff. Also, if a unit starts on the table and you go into strategic reserves like at a later point, you don't have to drop down and by the 3rd turn. You can stay until the 5th turn if you wanted. If you went 2nd, like that's a pretty big deal there, because then you score primaries and other things at the very, very end of the game. So these guys give you the ability to just like, yeah, score wherever you want. These have been seen, you see them in almost every single CSM list. A lot of people run them as bricks, so 10-man, which is definitely a great way to go. I also run them as MSU a lot of the times. I actually, just the other night, I basically tabled a tournament Bully Boys list. Basically tabled them, and by far, the MVP was the Warp Talons. I was jumping behind him, clearing stuff out, and then I would force him to turn around with his really slow walking Mega Knobs. He'd have to turn around and try to deal with the Warp Talons. What's funny too, I'm pretty sure it was just 5 of them. They killed an orc truck that tried to charge them all on their own. These guys are premier. If I was doing a tier list right now, these guys would be like in a tier of their own, like S++ tier. Very much take a look at these guys. Now, I will expect, I doubt they'll get like heavily nerfed, but I would expect like a points like increase at some point down the line. So definitely take advantage of them while you can. Next up, ooh, we got another beautiful profile. So bikers, man, bikers are so good. They kind of got nerfed or like a side grade. So they used to be able to go back into reserves. I was just talking about how big a deal that is with the warp talons. Now they have now they get +1 strength in melee when they charge something. Hey, that's fine for me. The big buff they got though, and the huge buff, and the reason they're like in this video is they're only 70 points now, dude. That is so good for the 12-inch move, T5, 3-wound profile. That is a huge deal. These guys again make perfect action monkeys. The only downside versus like Raptors, for example, that you can't move through walls or anything like that, but they're 15 points cheaper. Like, that's a big deal. And the T5, very much, I think the bikers are like exceptional. They too can bring 2 Meltaguns or 2 Plasma or 2 Flamers if they wanted to. Again, yet again, I'd recommend bringing the Meltagun every time. And with that +1 strength when they charge something, they too will hold their own in melee. The leader gets a Power Fist, so that's going up to strength 9. Yet again, you can buff up the AP pretty easy. Bikers, they're mounted, so of course they love being Renegade Raiders, so like getting AP 5 Meltaguns ain't no thing. Bikers, if you've been skipping them before, I definitely think they're worth looking at. People joke that they're like ugly, and in TTS, yes, these models are ugly, in my opinion. In person, man, if you paint them up right, I think they look pretty slick. I did like a Grelin Badlands, so like the dirt or whatever, I just put on their tires, so it looks like their tires dirty. Honestly, they're some of my favorite looking models. Regardless though, bikers at only 70 points, they're steel. You should probably be tossing them on your list, especially if you don't own like Raptors or something. Ooh, all right, next up, one of the best transports in the entire game. So, Rhinos, dude. Rhinos are so good for multiple reasons. A big part of that's going to be their price. 75 points for that stat line is, like, insane. 12-inch move, toughness 9, 3-up save, and 10 wounds for 75 points. On top of that, they have okay shooting, actually. Like, it's really good at, like, clearing out screens and, like, chaff. It's actually really good at it. You got the Havoc launcher, which is blast, and then me personally, I always put a combi bolter. I don't do the combi whipping. I don't want 2 shots hitting on 4s. I want 4 shots hitting on 3s, especially with sustained hits and everything. Again, I almost always target like chaff and stuff. People with like 6-up saves and that sort of things. Like, I think he's really good there. On top of that, he's got the firing ports too, so if you throw like Havocs in here, you're still getting like half the models, you're still getting to shoot. I think that's a pretty big deal. You can go like Mimi, you can throw like 2 Sorcerers in here, do like the overcharged Sorcerer profile, have the Rhino eat all the hazardous tests. Very much, man. Rhinos are almost an auto-include. Certain lists won't run transports. In that case, sure, you can skip them, but most lists I do think can be improved by a transport. They're really cheap on eBay as well. You used to see them every day for like 25 bucks, even like cheaper sometimes. So definitely, if you don't own a few already, like go out and get some, man. They make your Chosen better. They make Legionaries better. They make like even Cultists better. They work with any and everything, man. Very much, Rhinos are one of the premier transports in the entire game. Next up, we got one of the premier, like, damage dealers in the entire game. So, Predator Destructor. So, I have the Annihilator card for some silly reason, but the Destructor is the way to go, man. The one with the autocannon. He gets 6 shots when you're at 24-inch range. 6 shots, strength 9, minus 1 AP, 3 damage each. Where that's beautiful is his ability when you target infantry, and they don't have to be the closest or nothing, but when you target infantry, you get an additional AP on top of that. Where that is extra nuts. You start stacking that on with Renegade Raiders, Terminator Sorcerer, Stratagems, all that sort of stuff. You can get up to 4 AP, like, no problem. You can even get up to, like, 5 AP in certain situations. For 130 points, that is some of the most efficient shooting in the entire game. How I always run them, so the autocannon, and I give them 2 las cannons. That way they become literally anti-everything. They still get the Combi Bolter and the Havoc Launcher on top of that. Like, how much fire output are you getting for 130 points? They're a vehicle profile, so T10, 11 wounds. They're hard to chew through. Very much, dude. I think the Destructor is the way to go. Now, the Annihilator isn't, like, terrible. The Annihilator's okay. It's just he only has a single shot from his twin las cannon. It is twin-linked, so that's cool, and it is strength 14 as well, so you'd be threatening, like, Land Raiders and all that sort of stuff. But again, I think the Destructor, especially when you toss on, like, lethals, and again, that AP bonus, like, I think it's pretty big. Predator Destructor, one of the best units in the entire game. When it comes to points efficiency, I think he's way up there. Next up, all right, another one that's super up there, probably better than the Predator, so Vindicator. If you guys like play versus Space Marines or other CSM or any of those sort of units, you've probably been seeing these guys. Every army that can is running Vindicators, and there's a reason for it. First of all, they have a fantastic stat line. They're only 175 points. They have 9-inch move, which is pretty speedy, man. Like, it's slow for a vehicle, I guess, but it's faster than everything else. Toughness 11 and a 2-up save. Those are amazing. Now, they don't have an invul, but a 2-up save is basically an invul, honestly. With how like ubiquitous like cover saves are, pretty much everybody and their mother is getting cover. Very rarely will you save on less than a 4, so not having an invul, like, that's not even like a big deal at all. On top of that, they got the Demolisher Cannon. It looks cool as hell, man. Like, who doesn't love a giant cannon sticking out the front? But it's 24-inch range, D6 plus 3 shots, blast, I should add. That's a big deal. Strength 14, minus 3 AP, D6 damage. What's so great about that is this is anti-everything, man. That blast is a big deal. Maybe you got a blob of orcs. Heck, man, it could be like, I don't know, the Space Marines. It could be Blade Guard veterans, whatever, man. Any large squads, that blast is going to pay off. And then with that strength 14 and 3 AP, even giant vehicles, it could be a Land Raider, Imperial Knight, it doesn't matter. It's efficient in any and everything. Just like all the other vehicles, it still gets a Havoc launcher and the Combi Bolter, so like you're still plinking off like infantry if you need to. And then he also, and this is a big deal actually, he has the Siege Shield ability. So long story short, you can still use your blast weapons when you're in melee combat. That's a big deal, man, because that happens with my Forgefiends. I fought orcs the other night, and they tied up one of my Forgefiends, and I realized like, oh, this kind of sucks. Like, I hope I got fall back and shoot. With this guy, nope, you can't do that. There's no turning this guy off at all. I think Vindicator, he's one of the very best, like, anti-everythings in the game. He's some of the best shooting that CSM have access to. If you run him in, like, Soulforged Warpack, for example, that's a great Legion to run him with. You can make him a demon vehicle, so suddenly he's rerolling all of his hits. He's getting +1 to wound with his strength 14. He's winning everything in the game on a 2. Vindicator, if you haven't already been running some, you very much should go out and, like, buy a couple. By the way, good luck with that. They've been sold out, like, everywhere I see. But maybe get a 3D printer. Let's see. Next up, we're getting on the Demon Engine. So my favorite part, so Venomcrawlers. These guys, if you guys watch my other videos, you've probably seen me, like, sing the praises of these guys. They are, like, the best, like, skirmishers in the game. I love them for skirmishing. How I almost always run them is they rush out to the primary turn 1, and then they just hang out around it, and they just, like, protect it. Anybody comes close, they'll charge into them, and yeah, dude, they'll take advantage of their ability. So first of all, for output, they have pretty good output. They're only 110 points, dude. 12-inch move, toughness 9, 9 wounds, 3-up save, and a 5-up invuln for 110. Like, that's pretty fair to me. And then for ranged weapons, they have 2 Excruciator cannons. So they get 12 shots going out, 36-inch range, strength 6, -1 AP, 2 damage each. For the price you're paying, not bad at all. That really pops off with, like, sustained hits in the dark packs. Ooh, and it also pops off with the lethal hits. Kind of makes them anti-everything, actually. And definitely, like, Soulforged Warpack, for example, these guys are, like, premier there. They're actually one of the best demon engines you can bring in Soulforged Warpack. Better than even, like, the Forgefiends and all that stuff. Because again, the price you're paying and the +1 to wound on a strength 6 profile, that's a pretty big deal. Melee is very similar, so 6 attacks at the strength 6, -1, 2 damage each. Where their melee is awesome is the Soul Eater ability. So each time they destroy a unit in melee, they get +1 attacks with all of their weapons. So they basically get +3 attacks each time they destroy a unit. I do that all the time, especially with the skirmishing route, because they're normally, like, up the board. I just look for, like, really weak squads and just finish them off. That way I'm gaining, like, even more efficiency from a crazy cheap unit. Another fun way to run these guys is Pactbound Zealots. You mark them Zinch, that way they get lethals on a 5-up, and then again, they become anti-everything. It helps, too, that the model's, like, one of the coolest looking models in the entire game. They're also pretty cheap on eBay. I'm pretty sure you can still get them for, like, 30 bucks, like, all day, every day. Very much, dude. 3 of is, like, worth running in, like, most lists, especially if you go, like, Soulforge. You start popping on, like, you know, reroll all hits, the +1 AP from Renegade Raiders. That's a gigantic deal. Like, you just get value on top of value on top of value. Venomcrawlers, they're one of the best units in the entire game. I love them as skirmishers. Another unit I love, so Helbrutes, only 130 points, so they used to be, like, way more common. 130, you gotta compare them with the Predators and the Maulerfiends and all that sort of stuff, but that Dark Ascension ability, like, makes up for all that and then some, especially depending on the Legion you're running. So Dark Ascension, while a friendly Heretic Astartes within 6 inches, they get both sustained hits and lethal anytime they do their dark packs. Dude, you run them with, like, Pactbound Zealots, for example, oh my god, the efficiency just goes through the roof for your entire freaking army. You get sustained and lethals on 5-ups. That is by far, like, the best way to run these guys. Now, that said, they don't only run there. Better than Longmore, they'd be fine in. You get to reroll all the hits, so again, you're, like, fishing for those sustained and all that sort of stuff. Soulforged Warpack, they freaking love it, because you can get reroll all hits with the enhancement, and then you got the +1 to wound on top of that, so again, your efficiency for every model ever just goes through the roof. This guy improves your entire army. He has another cool ability, so Helbrute Fist is gone, thank god. Now, if you bring 2 melee weapons, he gets an additional 2 attacks on each of his profiles. That's actually pretty awesome, especially, again, with Soulforged Warpack, you get an additional 2 attacks on top of that, so you'd be getting 9 freaking, like, Helbrute hammer attacks, strength 14, -3 AP, D6, +1 damage, so you got, like, a melee anti-tank. You can go the Power Scourge route, you get, what, 12? 12 anti-infantry attacks, strength 7, -1 AP, 2 damage each, so that's probably the way I'd go. I used to always bring, like, a las cannon and then, like, the fist or something like that. Nowadays, I would go pure melee if you're able to. That said, even if you don't, like, maybe you, like, already built the model or whatever, doesn't matter, man. The big reason you're bringing him is that buff. Now, I will say 130 points, like, you do have to weigh, like, you know, am I really getting 130 points of efficiency from it? It depends how many other units you're using that are, like, shooting focused. I will say he's mainly for shooting, because you gotta think, he's only got a 6-inch move, and he's a vehicle, so he won't move through the walls. I will say he's toughness 9 with a 2-up freaking save. Like, that's pretty damn good, man. So he's pretty resilient, but he's mainly for shooting. So I would think if you're bringing like 3 Forgefiends, 2 Vindicators, and 2 Predators, like anything like that, yes, he's worth considering then. If you're only bringing a couple, only like 2 of those, and everything else is like melee or something, alright, in that case, maybe you can leave him at home. Helbrute, though, again, I think he's worth like heavy consideration in a lot of lists. All right, next up, we got another one of my favorites. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot. Probably already have said a lot. So, Maulerfiend. I've been running this guy for ages, and he's always done good. Well, guess what? He got a huge price drop. Now he's only 130 points. He works so exceptionally well at, like, threat saturation and distraction. He's a distraction Carnifex, basically. So he has a great profile. 10-inch move, toughness 10, 3-up save, and a 5-up in ball with 12 wounds, so he's pretty damn resilient. That 10-inch move is big, especially if you do, like, Soulforged Warpack. You move through walls. Like, that's a huge deal there. For his weaponry, so I would recommend you always do magma cutters. He gets 2 of them, by the way, so you get 4 attacks, strength 9 minus 4 AP, d6 damage. You have a multitude of ways of buffing him, by the way. So you bring like Vashtorr, goes up to strength 10. You bring a Terminator Sorcerer, goes to AP 5. You bring a Sorcerer and go Renegades, go to AP 6. Like, I bring that pretty much every single time ever. He's a vehicle on top of that, so he still gets to shoot in combat, so you're really not losing out on, like, the efficiency there. And also, it plays into, he's, like, anti-big stuff. I love him into, like, knights and that sort of stuff. It plays more into that versus the tendrils. Tendrils are okay if you need, like, clear screens or something, but it's only 6 attacks, strength 7, minus 1 AP, 1 damage each. I'd way rather have, like, the 4 AP versus the 1 AP, all that sort of stuff. On top of that, he's got the Maulerfiend fist, so what really makes him pop. So 6 attacks, strength 14, minus 2 AP, d6 plus 1 damage. So this guy is exceptionally good at like destroying other vehicles and that sort of stuff. What's awesome, again, Soulforged Warpack, so this could be a theme for all the demon engines. Soulforged Warpack, you get an additional 2 attacks. Could go to 8 attacks with the d6 plus 1 damage. Maybe give him like reroll all hits. Maybe got a Helbrute nearby. Like, dude, you really pop him off. For 130 points, that is a steal. On top of that, he has the Siege Crawler ability. So you don't get to reroll advance and charges, sadly, but you still ignore like any or all modifiers to his move, advance, and charges. That can be a big deal. So versus like Botan, they love that stupid like mole launcher or whatever. Dude, that thing will bite you in the ass if you aren't prepared for it. Well, this guy doesn't care at all. Yeah, very much, dude. I think Maulerfiend, he can go in any list ever. Obviously, there's certain ones that he works best with. Again, the threat saturation and distraction Carnifex. 3 of these guys is like a huge deal for your opponent to deal with. He can't ignore them. And obviously, you're in your opponent's face. Like, even turn 1, I very much think you should look at the Maulerfiend if you haven't been before. It helps that his model is sick as fuck, too. Next up, we got the Forgefiend. Yet again, we got a sick-looking model and just exceptional, like, output. So he is kind of spendy. He's 190 points, but he's worth it. He's worth every point of it. So he does only move 8 inches. Not that bad, but, compared to other vehicles, relatively slow. Otherwise, great profile. Toughness 10, 3-up and a 5-up in ball, 12 wounds, so he's fairly resilient. Where he really pops, though, he has 3 separate blast weapons. So the Ectoplasma Cannon, 36-inch range, fantastic, D3 shots each, strength 10, minus 3 AP, 3 damage each. So he's basically an anti-everything. He literally is an anti-everything. Anything T10 or below, yeah, dude, he can chew him up well. He's exceptionally good at, like, anti-horde. So, Orcs. This guy is, like, an MVP versus Orcs. I love him so much, man. When I fought that Orc the other night, they had a 20-man blob of Orcs. That was what? I think it was, like, 18 attacks on average that this guy gets. They're minus 3 AP and 3 damage each. That 3 damage is pretty big, even versus 1 wound infantry like that. Because they have a 5-up feel no pain. He didn't even roll them. He tried a few, realized it was, like, pointless. Didn't even roll his, like, feel no pains. Very much, I think this guy's like, yeah, dude, he's great at, like, anti-everything. And again, you buff him up. Vashtorr gets him up to strength 11. If you go Soulforged Warpack again, that means you're winning other vehicles on 2s. Like, that's pretty awesome. With that 3 AP, if you go Renegade Raiders, 4 AP ain't no thing. You can go Veterans of the Long War, reroll all the hits. You got a million options, man. We are blessed with one of the best books in the game. He also has Demonic Ordnance. So basically, you can give him devastating wounds. What's cool is you can use it every turn. It's not a once per game ability or anything like that. Now, it does give you hazardous, and you do have 3 separate hazardous profile, or 3 separate weapons, so you would have to be, like, very wary of that. That said, sometimes it's worth it, especially versus, like, Terminators, anything with a good in-ball. Now, this guy used to, when he went to 200 points, you basically never saw him, and you only had the index rules to work off of. Now that we have 8 freaking legions to choose from, and he dropped to 190, very much I think he's worth, like, considering for the vast majority of lists. These days, I run at least one of them in almost every single list. Now, I will say the runner-up is, like, the Vindicator. They're kind of on the same level. Truthfully, what I like to do, I like to run both of them. But again, I think, Forgefiend, dude, not only is he sexy, but he's really good. Ooh, all right, next up, we got Abaddon. You guys knew this guy was coming up eventually. So, Abaddon, he's a little beat stick, dude, and he got a big points drop. He dropped 15 points, which is pretty good. So, his profile's all right. When you consider the price, it's okay, but it is, like, pretty resilient. So it's basically a like super buff Terminator. So 5-inch move, toughness 5, a 2-up save, and a 4-up in ball. So that's really big there. And then 9 wounds with 5-up leadership. So that's awesome, dude. You're very rarely, if ever, going to be failing like your leadership test. He also has 4 objective control, which is fairly powerful. On top of that, he has Talon of Horus, so sustained hits 1. That's awesome. That means you always choose lethals when you're doing shooting with this guy. 24-inch range, 4 attacks, strength 5, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. So not the best thing ever, but it will clear out like marine profiles like fairly well. Now where this guy really pops off though is in melee, so he's got Drakden. So it has devastating wounds, 8 freaking attacks, hit on 2s, strength 14, minus 4 AP, 3 damage each. This guy will basically blend up like anything you get him in combat with. If it's like a knight, he might not be able to kill it right away, but he get damn close, that's for sure. He also has the Talon of Horus, so again, he got devastating wounds. This one has 14 attacks, strength 7, minus 3 AP, 1 damage each, so that's great for clearing out screens, like that ain't no thing. Where this guy is exceptionally good, and why you do see him all the time, is its War Master ability. So basically, you get to choose between 1 and 3 abilities. The one you're almost always going to pick is Paragon of Hatred. Basically, friendly, non-damned Heretics Starties within 6 inches, they can reroll all their hit rolls. That's amazing, dude. That keys directly off your Dark Pacts, and then any other abilities you might have. Maybe you boost it up, maybe you're a Pactbound Zealots or something. Dude, really pops off there. The other ability is Mark of Chaos Ascendant. You can give infantry and mounted units a 4-up in-ball. That's awesome. Your bikers and your Lord Discordant, they get a 4-up in-ball. They become more resilient. And then obviously all your infantry, a 4-up in-ball, dude. That's like one of the better saves in the entire game. Imagine giving your entire army that. Like, that's pretty valuable. His last option is Lord of the Traitor Legion. Basically lets you reroll your leadership and battle shock test. You basically wouldn't ever use that unless like the game's like on the line, it's near the end of the game. Maybe you're fighting Dread Talons or something like that. But otherwise, yeah, you almost always skip that. All right, another fantastic thing about this guy, though, is Dark Destiny ability. So each time you guys do a Dark Pact, on a 7-up, you gain a CP. Now, it used to be better, so as you see on the card, it used to be on a 2-up, but you gotta think, you get multiple attempts at it anytime you do a Dark Pact. So when you shoot, of course you do a Dark Pact then, he has 5 leadership, so you're not too worried about failing it. Then, when you charge somebody, you get to do it again, and then on your opponent's turn, you still get to do it a 3rd time. So you have 3 chances each battle round to gain a CP. With how like CP starved CSM just in general are, like, dude, I think that's actually like incredibly powerful and is a big reason for wanting to bring this guy. Now, me personally, everybody has their own style. I'll never knock somebody for playing a certain way. I don't really bring Abaddon that much, and the reason is because he's so damn good, man. All throughout the Index era, and I'm sure it's going to continue now, even though now that the Codex is out, people ran the Abaddon Castle. So you basically just surround them with as much like super ultra killy stuff as possible. Give them all their reroll hits every single freaking turn. It was ultra powerful, but I thought it was ultra boring because it was funny, man. You look up another like list won this GT. I wonder what it looks like. Oh, it's another Abaddon bond. So if you're newer to CSM, you're going to your first tournament, something like that. Definitely take a look at Abaddon. There's a reason he is so incredibly powerful and why people were thinking he was boring. And also, look at that model, man. It's beautiful. It makes an excellent centerpiece. I think it's only like $60, like USD or whatever, so not that ultra expensive. Abaddon, there's a reason people love him. He's like the main antagonist in the game. Definitely, you'd run him in your list. Ooh, next up, so Vashtorr. So Vashtorr used to kind of suck. Now he's pretty good. And you can run him in legions other than just like Soulforged Warpack. In fact, he might be better in other legions. First of all, he got a lot of boost. So 12-inch move, he went to toughness 10. He's got a 2-up save and a 4-up invul with 14 wounds. This guy's super resilient. He's only 190 points, so really not that terrible. His damage output's pretty good. So for range, he does have Vashtorr's Claw. So it's Torrent, no ignores cover, but Torrent. 12-inch range, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage each. That's cool. You'll kill a few like chaff or screens. Like, that's okay there. Where it really pops off, though, is melee. So Vashtorr's hammer got like super buffed. It still has anti-vehicle 4-up and devastating wounds, so he's going to love destroying vehicles. But 6 attacks, hit on 2s, strength 14, minus 2 AP, 3 damage each. Again, with those dev wounds, like, dude, he's going to be, like, destroying predators left and right. He has pretty good odds of destroying a predator. Again, don't forget you have, like, sustained hits on top of that. He also has a sustain profile for when a screen does get in the way. It'd be 14 attacks, strength 7, no AP, unfortunately, 1 damage each. That's not bad in the least bit. Again, if a screen gets in your way or tries to, like, clog you up or whatever, yeah, just, wipe him out of the way. For his abilities, so he has 2 of them. So, Unholy Mechanisms. While a friendly demon vehicles within 6 inches, you add 1 to the strength characteristic of their weapons. So again, dude, Forgefiend's gonna freaking love that. Forgefiend going to strength 11, that's a big deal right there. Especially with Soulforged Warpack, but even the other detachments, that's pretty big there. Again, if you bring like a Vindicator, I guess you don't need to go like strength 15 necessarily, but a Predator, if you made him a demon, you'd put his autocannon strength 10. That's a huge breakpoint. That's a very important breakpoint. So that alone has pretty good value. I should mention he has Deep Strike, so you can basically get him wherever you need him to be. I definitely like that. His second ability, so it got changed. So now how it works is he has an 18-inch wide aura. Anytime he is targeted by a ranged weapon, the attacking unit has hazardous profile on all their weapons. Dude, that's huge. Imagine if like a blob, like it would never happen, but imagine if like a blob of like 20 cultists or something decide to shoot at Vashtorr. Boom, dude, you'd be picking up like, I don't know, 5 models or something. Like that's big there. Where it's even better, elite models. So maybe, I don't know, obliterators, something like that are targeting this guy. Dude, they got a 1 in 6 chance that they're just going to pick up their model. Doesn't matter how many wounds or their toughness or what their save is. Like, it's actually a pretty big deal. Now, do beware, it only works if they target him, but it is 18-inch range. That's gigantic. And again, with Deep Strike, you could almost run him as like bait. So you like drop him in the middle of the board, like right in front of your opponent's army and just be like, come at me, bro. Like, you know, shoot at me, bro. I dare ya. At 190 points, I do think he's like worth it. He definitely makes certain legions like pop off. Soulforged Warpack, very much love this guy. You're getting a +1 to wound. When you get the extra strength on top of it, like that's a huge breakpoint, like plenty of times. It also helps too, and I'm gonna say this a lot because we're playing CSM. His model looks sick as hell. Very much, I'm looking for any excuse to run this guy. Next up, I think we got, generic character. Oh, nope, we got one more. So Fabius Bile is a fabulous model. This guy is one of the most efficient characters in the game, at least for name characters, in my opinion. So first of all, he has an alright profile. So 6-inch move, T4, 3-up save, 5 wounds, but where he's great, he has a 5-up feel no pain. A 5-up feel no pain is about the same as a 50% boost, so he's basically an 8-wound profile. On top of that, he's got his Acolyte, so he's sort of got 9 wounds, and where it's even better is that means you have an extra body to like eat shots for you. Somebody shoots a las cannon, somebody shoot like a mega ultra las cannon at you. Nope, I'm gonna put on my Acolyte, that ain't no thing. On top of that, he has really good damage output. Where I think this guy especially pops, by the way, is smaller point games. So maybe you're just starting your CSM army, you're playing just like 1K or smaller games. This is one of the best characters you could possibly bring, in my opinion, because of that damage output and the abilities that we're about to get to. He has really good abilities. So for damage, he's got Zyklos Needler, Anti-Infantry 2-up, Pistol, 18-inch range, really good range, 3 attacks, hit on 2s, strength 2, but again, anti-infantry 2-up, -1 AP, 2 damage each, so that's awesome. You'll be killing a few Marines like each and every turn. On top of that is melee though, is where he really pops. So Rod of Torment is huge. 6 attacks, hit on 2s, strength 5, -1 AP, 3 damage each on an 85-point model. Like that's a steal in my opinion. He gets a few extra attacks, both from the Acolyte and then his backpack as well, so definitely adds up. Again, if you're doing smaller point games and even like full-size games, I very much think he's worth including. On top of that, he has some of the better abilities like for the army. So he's got Enhanced Warriors. You can attach him to Legionaries, Accursed Cultists, or Chosen. Any one of those are a great option, by the way. Chosen or Accursed Cultists, I think, are fantastic. But Enhanced Warriors give them +1 strength in melee and +1 toughness. Dude, that is such a big deal, especially on Chosen. They go to T5 3-wound infantry. On Accursed, same deal, T5. Like, both of those are huge breakpoints. On top of that, he's got Surge and Acolyte ability. So once per turn, not battle round, once per turn, when an attack is located to model in the unit, if Fabius Bile is still alive, you can change the damage to 0. Yet again, guys, like, especially in smaller point games, that's huge. A lot of times people only have, like, limited, like, anti-tank or, you know, like, strong firepower. This guy's gonna 0 out some of that. Lastly, and probably his best ability, he's got Chirurgeon. Basically, when Fabius Bile dies for the first time, you roll a d6. On a 2-up, he gets back up with all of his wounds remaining. Again, he's got a 5-up feel no pain. On top of that, he has ultra-efficient, like, damage output. I'm surprised we don't see this guy, like, way more often. I'm surprised you don't see him in, like, every single list ever. If I was doing a tier list, I would, like, legitimately, I'd put him in S tier, dude. I think he's one of the best, like, named characters in the entire game. When you consider all his abilities, all the output, that profile for 85 freaking points, the fact there's 2 models, like, what is not to love? Somebody tell me, like, leave a comment below. Is there a single thing not to love about Fabius Bile? Also, too, his lore's excellent. If you haven't heard his lore before, like, you know, go look up a video or something. I love everything about this guy. He's a fabulous individual. Next up, we got, Chaos Lord. All right, so I said he was the best name character. Chaos Lord probably is, like, the best character, like, period, or maybe, like, generic character, I guess. He's cheap, he's 90 points, and he has damn good abilities. So first of all, for his profile and his, like, output, it's pretty average. So T4, 3-up save, and a 4-up inball. The 4-up inball is pretty damn good. And then 5 wounds, so he's, like, you know, he's an average character, maybe slightly above average there. For his output, so he's got a plasma pistol, whatever. And then in melee, though, give him a Demon Hammer or a Power Fist. Almost always you go with the Demon Hammer. Granted, Power Fist is also a viable, like, alternative. The difference is the Power Fist hits on 2s, but the Demon Hammer hits on 3s, but has devastating wounds. So you gotta, like, pick your poison. Me, personally, I almost always go Demon Hammer. It's strength 8, -2 AP, 2 damage each, and again, it's got dev wounds. And by the way, those stats are a lie because he's got Chance for Glory. Once per battle, at the start of the fight phase, you can use your ability. If you do, you improve the strength, attacks, armor pin, and damage all by 1. So he's going to strength 9, AP 3, 3 damage each with the dev wounds. Maybe run him Veterans of the Long War, so you're rerolling all those hits. You can give him the enhancement, so he gets a critical 5-up, so you'd be doing dev wounds on 5-ups. That's pretty big there. You run him, what is it? It's Deceptors who have the Soul Link. You can run Soul Link, and truthfully, you wouldn't really put Soul Link on this guy. You'd put a Soul Link on one of the other characters, and then you can steal his chance for glory. You can give your Master Execution +1 strength AP damage. Like, that's pretty nutso there. Where he really pops off, though, and the reason he is, like, the best, like, generic character, at least that we have access to, is this Lord of Chaos ability. So once per battle round, one unit that he's attached to, they can use this stratagem for free, even if somebody else used it. Both parts of those are huge. We're already starved for command points, so making it free, that's a big deal. And the fact you get to use it twice, that's a gigantic deal. So Renegade Raiders, you jump out of a transport, your Havocs are rerolling all their hits and wounds, and then you charge in with a Brick of Chosen or something. Again, you're rerolling all your hits and wounds for free, man. Yeah, Chaos Lord, he's almost an auto-include. You're going to see him in the vast majority of CSM lists. There's a reason for it. Definitely, this is one of the best characters, definitely in the book, I'd argue in the entire game. Next up, we got, Master Executions. So this guy's definitely runner-up for Chaos Lord. He has damn good abilities. What's cool, too, he has a Lieutenant rule. So basically, you can attach him with a second character. So if you do run a Brick of Chosen, you want them, like, super ultra killy or whatever. Yeah, dude, you can have both of them attached. This guy's really good with, Deceptors. Yeah, with the Soul Link, I think he's especially good there. And the fact that you can infiltrate your units up the board, like, dude, that's awesome. You can start 9 inches away from somebody. If you go first, like, it's a bad day for your opponent. On top of that, he has really good melee, so Acts of Dismemberment. So it has precision and devastating wounds. It'd be 5 attacks, hit on 2s, of course. Strength 7, minus 2 AP, 2 damage each. With the precision and the dev wounds, this guy's like an character, like, blender. Yeah, he's super good, especially if they don't have an invul, if they only have a few wounds. Now, I should mention, this guy, he himself only has 4 wounds and no invul. So he is like sniper food, so you do need to be careful there. Like, play a little cagey, make sure that you're getting the counter charges, not the other way around. Regardless, though, where he super pops is his ability. So, Warp-Sided Butcher. While he's leading a unit, each time you target an enemy unit that is below its starting strength, you can reroll all the hit rolls for the entire unit. If they're below half strength, you can reroll the wound roll as well. So that's beautiful, man. And that works with a bunch of legions. Pactbound Zealots are going to absolutely love it. Getting the 5-up sustained or the 5-up lethals and rerolling all your hits, potentially all your wounds on top of that, like, that's awesome. Saves you CP from having to, like, spend CP for the same abilities there. I already mentioned it, Deceptors are very much going to love this dude, because again, you can deep strike him up the board, and you're getting all your rerolls. Getting somebody below starting strength is really easy, especially with vehicles, by the way. Vehicles, it's like deceptively easy. You literally just think off a single wound, and suddenly you're rerolling all your hits against them. That's a pretty big deal, because, often you're having a hard time, like, hurting vehicles and those sort of profiles. Well, this guy helps, like, shore that up. On top of that, he's got Trophy Taker. Each time he destroys an enemy character, you gain a command point. Again, he's really good at killing characters, and we're super starved for command points. So, like, that's a nice little bonus on top of all the other, like, great themes with this guy. I believe he's only 80 points, so fairly cheap. Yeah, definitely, Master Execution, he's like a runner-up to the Chaos Lord. Definitely worth looking at, and as usual, as I'm going to say with most models, his model looks sick as hell. What's really cool, too, is it's super easy to, like, convert. Just put, like, a helmet on him. Put, like, a cool, like, Chosen helmet on him. Mwah! They pop off so well. All right, next up, we got, my favorite freaking generic character. So this is my favorite. If you guys watch all my, like, tactical videos, like, you know how often I bring up this guy. Terminator Sorcerer, dude. First of all, he's only freaking 90 points, so he's a steal. He's got a Terminator profile, so you got the T5, 2-up save, and a 4-up invul. He also has a Chaos Familiar, so once per battle, you can blank a damage coming in at him. That's fantastic. Maybe run him like Fellhammer Siege Host, you give him the Bastion Plate, and then you're blanking out a second damage each turn. Like, holy cow, dude. Ultra resilient. The reason you bring him, though, is his Death Hex ability. So at the start of your shooting phase, you choose one model with this ability, and you choose an enemy within 12 inches invisible. You roll a d6. On a 1, your day's kind of ruined, but on a 2-up, until your next movement phase, that's right, until your next freaking turn, your entire army gets +1 AP versus that target. Dude, that is such a giant buff. That is one of the best buffs in the game. So you get to take advantage of it in your shooting phase, your melee phase, and then your opponent's melee phase. So 3 phases worth of value out of this one dude. On top of that, he has warp time, so if you do attach him to a squad, you get to reroll all your advance and charges. Where that's beautiful is often, almost always, you're going to be deep striking this guy, so if he does have a bodyguard, that improves your chances of getting that charge off. You don't have to pay the CP if you fail it, like I definitely like that. Now, I will say, I almost always run this guy solo, just because me personally, everybody has their own taste and style. Me personally, I think Terminators are a little too spendy for my taste or whatever, so I almost always run him solo. That said, he's so valuable. Death Hex is such a big buff that, yes, very much you could give him a bodyguard, and it would be valuable and have, like, a reason for being there. So you gotta kind of, sort of pick your strategy there. On top of it, he has really good output for the price you're paying. So range, he has Infernal Gaze, 24-inch range. If you do the focus version, it has Devastating Wounds, D6 attacks, Strength 6, minus 2 AP, D3 damage. So you're getting multi-damage attacks going out there. Don't forget, he's buffing up the AP, so that'd be AP 3, like baseline, like almost always. And melee is no slouch either. He's got a force weapon, so you get 4 attacks, Strength 6, AP 1, potentially AP 2, D3 damage each. If you run him with like Renegade Raiders, that's where this guy like really pops off. You're getting an extra 2 AP on pretty much any target. Well, so long as they're on objective, you get plus 2 AP for your entire army, essentially. I very much think as Sorcerer, he belongs in most lists. Now, I will say we have such good character options and just like good unit options, period, that sometimes it's pretty hard to like squeeze this guy in. I do think, especially if you're like a finesse player, you want to like show off or something, I think this guy's one of the like premier options that you could choose. Terminator Sorcerer, he belongs in most lists. Again, he buffs up other units, so like Possessed, dude, he alone like almost makes them like usable. Well, okay, I shouldn't say usable. He alone like buffs them up to like above usable, you know, above average, whatever. But for 90 points in that profile, the blanking out damage, there's not a single thing not to like about him, especially the fact that you can deep strike. So you almost guarantee you get that death X on whoever you want. If you haven't ran this guy before, throw him in your next list and just see what happens. He improves the entire freaking army. It's nuts. All right, next up, we got Dark Commune. Some of my favorite models, man. I love them. They're so small. They're just like humans, sort of. They're like really mutated humans. But these are some of my favorite like models in all of 40k. But dude, oh my god, do they bring like the value on top of it. So they're only 60 points, which is a steal for 5 models. One of them has 4 wounds, so you basically had a 9 wound profile for the 60 points. On top of that, you can attach them to Cultists or Accursed Cultists. You can do Accursed Cultists every day of the week. Reason being, you got the Dark Ritual ability. So once per battle in your command phase, you can use your ability. If you do until the end of the turn, you get to advance and charge, gigantic, and you add 1 to your hit and your wound rolls. For 60 points, like how many buffs can you put on a single unit? If you run a brick of Accursed Cultists, these guys are an auto-include times 10. Now, you would lose the scouts unless you're running Chaos Cults, then you get an enhancement for it. But still, dude, I think the advance and charge alone is worth it. And then you attack the +1 to hit and wound on top of it. Like, yeah, dude, he's an auto-include. Maybe even times 3. He also has Faithful Flock, which is also huge. Whenever they're leading a unit, all the models in that unit get a 5-up invul. That's gigantic. Yet again, with the Accursed Cultists, you got both 1 wound and 3 wound profiles, like Eat the Shots. You also have pretty good damage output. So he's got Warp Curse. If you do focus, you get Sustained Hits 2, 18-inch range, 3 shots, strength 5, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. Not bad in the least bit for the points you're paying. And then melee, they're really not that good. You do have a Commune stave, so it would be Dev Wounds, 2 attacks, hit on 4s, strength 3, no AP, D3 damage each. So if you fish for the 6s, like you might kill a Marine or 2, maybe even a Terminator. Very much, again, they're one of my favorite kits, so like any excuse to run them is like, you know, I'm going for it. But on top of that, they're also great. Certain models, yeah, especially the Cursed Cultists and whatnot, like they're gonna get so much value to where you almost wouldn't run them without these guys. Last up, we got Warpsmith. This is one of the favorite ones. Here, let me get this guy out of the way. All right, Warpsmith, one of my favorite models. First of all, he looks so cool, dude. He's like so like dark and brooding and handsome, if you ask me. But on top of that, he's cheap. He's 70 points. He has a great profile for the price. So T4, 2-up save. 2-up save on an infantry character that you can hide super easy. Like, that's pretty awesome. Best of all, though, he can get lone op. So he has the Warpsmith ability. While you're within 3 inches of a friendly vehicle, you get the lone operative ability. So he's basically like invulnerable, because of course you're going to have him surrounded by vehicles. He's almost never going to have vehicles like not around him, and if that is the case, you're probably losing anyways. On top of that, he has Master of Mechanisms, one of the better abilities for the army. So in your command phase, select a friendly vehicle within 3 inches. That vehicle regains D3 lost wounds, which is awesome. That makes up for like dark packs, especially Soulforged Warpack. You're gonna be hurting yourself a lot if you haven't tried it yet. Yeah, definitely he helps make up for that. But you also get to add 1 to their hit roll until your next turn. That's awesome, dude. Works both shooting and melee, so that's value there. And then you got maybe running like Veterans of the Long War, so you're rerolling all your hits, and you're hitting on 2s, that's gigantic, and you have sustained hits. Maybe go Soulforged Warpack, and you like stack 8 buffs on a single model. You can definitely do that. Check out my review for the Soulforged Warpack. Dude, this guy like makes the entire army pop off if you're bringing vehicles. He also has Enraged Machine Spirits, so at the end of your movement phase, you just select an enemy vehicle within 12 inches, they must take a Battle Shock test. I'll be honest, that one's basically like nothing. And the last thing on earth I want is this guy to be within 12 inches of the enemy. Then he loses lone op. That means he's like vulnerable to stuff. So that's almost like not having ability. But hey, I don't know, maybe they rush you and I don't know, they're about to take a primary, something that, you know, takes care of it. On top of that, he has pretty okay output. So he has 3 different pistols, which is cool. That means even if he's tied up, he's still getting like his shooting output. Because his melee is not the best, but you add on the shooting on top of it, okay, then it is pretty good. It's a flamer, a melta, and a plasma, so those all add up. On top of that, they did change his melee. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have it memorized. I believe it's basically a mix of both the Exalted Weapon and the Warphammer. I think it's basically an Exalted Weapon with Dev Wounds. So it'd be Strength 6, minus 2 AP, 2 damage each. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Either way, again, you're not using this guy for any of the output, even though I just brought it up. You're using him to buff your vehicles. If you're running Soulforged Warpack, you bring 3 of this guys like every single day of the week. You don't even like think about it. They have the Tempting Addendum enhancement on top of that, so you can get reroll all hits in a 3-inch bubble. Oh my god. Yet again, if you do Veterans of the Long War, I think he pops off there. You can even do Pactbound Zealots with your 5-up sustain. Everything about this guy is good, man. When you're hitting on 2s and you have like 5-up exploding hits, or just rerolling all the hits, period, you're getting over 100% conversion rate on the successful hits. Very much for 70 points, dude. I'd almost say he's not included in like most armies, at least if you're bringing vehicles. All right, last up, I got a few like notable mentions I want to bring up. So Defiler, dude, this guy got such a huge buff. Defiler's like beautiful. His new buff, so what they gave him, he gets a free counterattack on your opponent's turn. Counterattack is normally a 2 command point stratagem. It becomes free, dude. A really fun combo with that is Veterans of the Long War. Veterans of the Long War have a fight first stratagem that does cost 2, so it is kind of expensive. And then maybe you bring like Lucius the Eternal along, so you bring him with another brick of like Legionaries or something like that. So now you have 2 fight first units. Then you toss a Defiler in there. Dude, on your opponent's turn, he's really not going to want to charge you. That's 2 fight first, and then somebody with a free like counterattack. Like, that's giant there. Again, Soulforged Warpack, he pops off especially well too. He takes advantage of both the shooting and the melee buffs that the attachment gives, and he can move through walls, so all those things are pretty awesome there. I think Rubrics are one of the better, like, cult options. Well, they are, like, the best cult marine option that we have, and they're just one of the better, like, infantry in the game. What's beautiful, you run them as maybe, like, Renegade Raiders. Well, they have their Bringers of Change ability, so first of all, they're rerolling their wound rolls of 1 at range, and if they're on objective, you roll all the wound rolls. If you're on Renegade Raiders, you get plus 1 AP on top of that, and you have an Icon of Flame. When you get critical wounds, you get an additional AP on top of it, so that's an additional plus 2 AP. They have Ignores cover on their Warp Flamers. I very much think Rubrics are one of the best, like, just infantry in the entire game. You could throw them in a Rhino, you can put them on foot, however you want to do it. Like, they'll definitely do some damage. What I like the most, though, they give you Overwatch play, which isn't something that CSM normally have access to. If you're looking for some way to, like, spice up your list, definitely take a look at Rubrics. Daemon Prince, he's a great runner-up. If you're, like, starting your collection and you don't own too many models yet, he's a fantastic, like, centerpiece and just like a beat stick. He got a pretty good price drop. He's only 165 points, has a great stat line. 12-inch move, T9, 2-up save with a 4-up invul and 10 wounds. Like, that's fantastic. My favorite thing about this guy is that you can, like, customize him. So if you go Khorne, you get plus 2 strength to your melee. So I'd go to strength 10 strike profile. So suddenly he's, like, threatening vehicles, elite infantry, all that stuff. You give him Prince of Nurgle, so he goes up to toughness 10 with the flying version. You go to toughness 11 with the foot version. Lots of things like enjoy about this guy. He also, and one of the best perks of this guy, he has Demonic Destruction. So anytime he finishes a charge move, you select an enemy that you are in engagement range of, you roll a d6 for each wound you have remaining, so hopefully 10 of them. For each 4-up, you do a mortal wound to a maximum of 6. That's a pretty big deal. We don't have much access, like, at all to, like, mortal wounds like that, so that does add some value to pretty much every single list. Again, maybe you're, like, starting up your collection, or you just think he looks badass, like, rule of cool overall. Definitely, you can run the Daemon Prince. Speaking of rule of cool overall, the freaking Lord Discord. You guys are lucky I didn't include him in the main list. I think people underestimate this guy. He has a damn resilient profile. So T9, 2-up save, unfortunately only a 5-up invul, but 10 wounds with the T9, like, that's pretty resilient there. Don't forget Abaddon can buff him up to a 4-up invul. Not that you do that, that'd get really freaking expensive. He has pretty okay output, especially range. So Bale Flamer, ignores cover, auto-hitting, D6 plus 3 shots, strength 6, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. Maybe buff it up with Renegade Raiders or the Terminator Sorcerer, like, you know, you're still getting pretty good damage there. In melee, he's okay. He's good at killing, like, marine profiles and less in melee. He just doesn't have that many attacks. Now, where he really pops off, and the reason I think he is, like, better than people think, are his abilities. So, Corrupt Machine Spirits. At the start of your opponent's shooting phase, you choose an enemy vehicle within 12 inches invisible. They must take a leadership test. If they pass, they subtract 1 from their hit rolls for the rest of their phase. If they fail, they can't shoot at all. Dude, imagine doing that to, like, a Khorne Lord of Skulls or, like, an Imperial Knight or something like that. Dude, that could, like, swing the game in your favor. Just that single, like, shooting phase. Losing out on almost 500 points of shooting, that's a pretty big deal. On top of that, he has Spirit Thief. So at the start of your shooting phase, you choose an enemy vehicle within 12 inches. They do not have to be visible. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Heretic Astartes model makes an attack that targets that unit, reroll wound rolls of 1. Dude, that is, like, the only source of reroll wounds that's not tied directly to a unit, like, profile. The only source of that in the entire army. If you run that with like Soulforged Warpack, for example, you're winning most stuff on 2s as it is. You're rerolling all your hits. Now you're rerolling the wound rolls of 1 as well. So you have like over 100% conversion rate for hits and then 100% like wounding rate. Like, dude, it gets pretty damn nasty there. Now, he is overpriced. He's 190 points. That's what's holding him back. But again, rule of cool overall. I have ran this guy like probably a dozen times since the Codex came out, or, you know, since it leaked, I should say. I probably ran him a dozen times, and I've won the vast majority of those games. So he's not terrible by any means. He's just quite overpriced is all. Lastly, okay, next up, we got Lucius. Lucius the Eternal. I think, again, people undervalue this guy. Dude, that fight first. So he himself has fight first. More importantly, he has duelist pride. He gives fight first to a unit you attach him to. You can attach him to Legionaries or Noise Marines. If you're going melee, which of course you would with Lucius, I would go Legionaries like pretty much every day of the week. I think they just have better like loadout options when it comes to the melee profiles. With that fight first, dude, that's such a big deal. I mentioned it earlier with the Veterans of the Long War. I think that's a really fun combo. You got Lucius doing it for free every turn, and if you need to, you can spend the 2 CP to do it with another unit. The other unit's not tied to anything specific, so you can do it with like Warp Talons, you do it with Maulerfiend, you do it with the Corn Lord of Skulls, you do it with whoever you want. Lucius for only 95 points, I think he's a steal to be honest. And I should mention he has really good output. So Duelist Sword and Lash of Torment. Precision, 8 attacks, hidden on 2s, strength 5 minus 2 AP, 2 damage each. So this guy alone will be able to clear out like MSU squads of Legionaries. He'd probably do it all on his own. For 95 points, again, I think he's like extra valuable. Definitely worth like at least looking at for a lot of your lists. Last up, we got Huron. So first of all, Huron's a badass. Second of all, he has an extra good ability. So he actually has a few. The Tyrant of Badab, you can get +1 objective control to the unit he's attached to. You can attach him to Legionaries or Chosen. Dude, you'd have, with this guy attached to it, you'd have 32 objective control on a blob of freaking Legionaries. My goodness, like, good luck clearing that out. I think that's strong. Better yet, though, he has Red Corsairs. So after both players have deployed their armies, but before you know who goes first, you can redeploy up to 3 infantry. Where that is extra strong is Deceptors. Deceptors, you can infiltrate 3 squads of Legionaries. Well, maybe you stack a corner, maybe you forward deploy, maybe you do whatever. You get to redeploy them after. So maybe your opponent was going to counter your flank. Nope, I'm going to go the opposite. Or maybe you play mind games with them. They know that you're going to redeploy them. So, they like spread out or something like that. And you just stay. You don't even use his ability. Very much, I think that's extra powerful. I believe he's only 80 points as well. For the output you're getting, the profile, all that stuff, he's a steal. All right, last up, I want to load some tournament lists for you guys. So some of these won GTs. Some of them went 5-0. But this should give you an idea of what people are like currently running. And dude, guys, yeah, I gotta say, CSM are doing fantastic. So to start off, we got the, it's not even an Abaddon Castle, so this is beautiful. I love it. So what? He's got Chaos Lord, he's got Master Executions, and then Abaddon, of course, and then a second Master Executions. I know he gave one of the Master Executions, he gave him Mark of the Hound, so that gets the entire squad scouts. So he's doing a big brick of Legionaries with the Lord in a Rhino. That's beautiful, scouting Rhino. They come out and get to charge something. And then Abaddon likely went with the Chosen. I believe you can attach Master Executions as well, so that would be like a fun little brick there. Holy shit, that would be pretty strong. I'm not sure, yeah, you wouldn't be able to put in the Rhino with Abaddon there, but whatever, man. They can just trumble across the board, use line of sight. Now, this is Renegade Raiders. I should probably mention that. Also, all these lists will be in the description below. So if you guys want to, like, try them out on your end, or better yet, like, change them up for your style, like, definitely give that a shot. He's got not 1, but 2 bricks of Warp Talons. One of the best units in the entire game. I know people have been, like, complaining about, like, how strong they are. He's a man of taste, apparently. He's got 2 freaking Venomcrawlers, so that's beautiful. And then, like I mentioned, guys, at the very beginning, Cultist squads and auto-include in every single list ever. This is an awesome list. He's also got 2 MSU Legionaries. I probably should have mentioned that. They'd probably go in the other Rhino, and potentially he put the Master Execution with one of them. I think this is fantastic, man. Look, he doesn't have, like, any, like, no Vindicators, no Forgefiends, none of that stuff. He's going, like, pure infantry. I think it's an awesome way to, like, play CSM, because they do have exceptional infantry. I would assume the Warp Talons did most of the heavy lifting, and, of course, like, Abaddon did with the Chosen as well. I very much want to play this list. I'm probably going to try it later, maybe later tonight, maybe after this video, I'll give it a shot. This is a super fun-looking list, and a different style than I normally see. CSM normally bring a boatload of shooting. We're about to see here in a moment, but, yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. Next up, we got Pactbound Zealots. So this was ran by James Carmona. He went 5-0 at a GT, so he went undefeated, by the way. So Pactbound Zealots, if you guys didn't already know, if you didn't already watch my review, I think they're one of the strongest legions in the game. Legions in the book, and one of the strongest in the game. And in fact, if you were to look up the win rate, so look up like the meta report, Pactbound and Soulforged Warpack have been doing way better than even Renegade Raiders. Renegade Raiders, I think, are below 100, or below 50% even, whereas these ones are above 50. Now, I will say with Renegade Raiders, most people are like attracted to them. Like everybody knows right away, they're pretty obvious. So I could see the newer, the less skilled players like you know, gravitating towards them. A lot of people don't have a big collection for like Soulforged Warpack especially. Regardless though, this guy does his Pactbound Zealots pretty much exactly how I would. Now, we're going to see a common theme here. We got 2 bricks of Warp Talons, so there's probably a reason you should be bringing these with your list. We got 2 freaking MSU Legionaries with Lords in there. That's pretty strong. You got 3 squads of Accursed Cultists. I believe he marked one of them as Nurgle as well, which is really interesting. It means you can keep him alive. I'd assume he forward deployed that one like directly on the line. Well, of course, they have the Scout 6-inch, so he probably scouted to the middle of the board. I think that's actually a really clever play. And then he's got my favorite part, man. He's got the Helbrute with the fire support. So he's got 2 Forgefiends, 2 Predators. I would assume all of these... okay, I bet 1 Forgefiend is undivided, and the rest are probably Nurgle. Again, check the description below if you guys want to look at the list. This is such a powerful way to run CSM period. Ooh, he is a man of taste. He still brought the Nurglings. I bet they're running Leviathan rules, but seriously, guys, I still think Nurglings are worth bringing even in Pariah Nexus. The fact you get Infiltrators for 40 points, I think it's just way too valuable to, like, ignore. I had a game the other day versus that Orc player, and yeah, dude, the Nurglings were, like, key. Even without the scoring part, too, I think they were key. This is an excellent list. If you guys are looking to get into Pactbound Zealots, this is one, and what's cool is you can make just small little changes. Maybe don't own all these models, well, just get rid of, like, the Accursed Cultists and change it into, I don't know, Chosen or Possessed or any of that. There's plenty of ways you can do it. But the general, like, idea, the general, like, theme behind it stays the same. You got the Helbrute and exploding 5s on all your fire support. So you bring a chunk of fire support and then a boatload of melee to, like, shove in your opponent's face. This is an exceptional list. Probably I would, so, you know, we all have our own styles. I'd be curious to see this list versus this list. But I would probably, I'd probably, like, bet on the Pactbound Zealots, to be honest. All right, next up. So this was ran by, I believe it was Matt Robertson. He went 4-0-1, so he had 1 game where he tied, and you best believe I love this list because it's Pactbound, it's Soulforged Warpack, my favorite freaking Legion. So he only brought a single bomb of Warp Talons, just one, but otherwise this is like the way that you do the Soulforge. Now it's interesting, he did only bring 2 Warpsmiths, and there's no Vashtorr, so that is an interesting change. However, he did exactly what I would do. Bring Raptors, bring jump infantry. For sure, man, 100%. You need cheaper units to do all your actions for you. Now, a 10-man brick of Warp Talons, no, you don't want them doing actions, but you do still have your Raptors at the least, and then your Cultists. Now, if I may, and again, we all have our own style, and I guarantee this guy's probably a better player than I'd probably bring more Raptors. So I would probably change something, or maybe I'd split up the Warp Talons into 2 5-mans, but, you know, I shouldn't be critiquing the list, because whatever, obviously it did really freaking well. You got 3 Forgefiends, you got 1 Maulerfiend, and then 3 freaking Venomcrawlers, so it's beautiful, I love it. And then the 2 Predators. Yet again, this is a list that you can make plenty of changes with, guys. Maybe you don't own like 4 freaking Fiends. Well, drop one of them. Probably drop one of the Forgefiends and bring in a Vindicator, something like that. Maybe you want to bring like 3 Warpsmiths. You want to get hidden on 2s for 3 of your different models. Like I definitely think that's about to go. And again, Nurglings, even in Pariah Nexus, just and you know, a lot of these might be Pariah Nexus because they're only bringing a single squad of them. So maybe they were using Pariah. But again, dude, I think they have value very much. Soulforged Warpack is my favorite freaking Legion. It's the one I'll be bringing to tournaments. And man, I love to see it. All right, last up, we got Ben Eisenhoff. So he went 4-1 at a GT. Let's see. Oh, that would have been my list. Oh, that's right. I love this list so much because he plays the style I often do, or at least often used to. He did the I'm going to shove a bunch of shit in your face technique. So look at how many units he's freaking got. Like, I couldn't even count it all. He's got, like, what, 16 units or something ridiculous. He got 3 squads of Cultists, beautiful. 2 squads of Nurglings, also beautiful. You got 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 squads of Legionaries, that's pretty wild. He did the MSU Warp Talons route. So yes, and this was a big reason I want to show this list. You don't have to do the bricks of the Warp Talons. They work perfectly fine MSU. I should probably mention this is Renegade Raiders. It's probably important to know. He also, look at this, he brought a 5-man Rubric squad. That's an interesting choice. I like that. He probably put in a Rhino along with some Legionaries, popped them out and flamed the shit out of something. I think that's cool. Look at this, too. He brought freaking Vashtorr and Renegade Raiders. Like, how interesting is that? Does he even have any... Look, he doesn't even have any demon vehicles. This guy's a memester lord, dude. I love it. Oh, my God, what a beautiful list. 3 freaking Rhinos. Got the squad of Bikers. They're so damn efficient, dude. And then 2 Predators. This is an excellent list. Oh, and then you got the Havocs. Pretty sure they're las cannon, by the way. And those definitely went in the Rhino. And I bet they went with the Rubrics. I bet that was the way he did it. This is an excellent list. And look at all the different styles we got, guys. And this is just 2 legions. There's 8 legions to choose from. Oh, wait, this is 3 because we got Pactbound in there. But there's still, that's not even half the legions we got access to. I very much think like every single legion has a competitive list. Fight me if you don't believe it. Even Chaos Cults, I think if you go like full on Horde mode, they're probably one of the strongest armies in the game, truthfully. Regardless, though, I was very like pleased to get to do this video. I've been looking forward to for a while. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. If you have anything to add, if I missed a certain unit, there's a fun combo that you've been using, anything like that, go on ahead and leave a comment below. Regardless, thank you guys very much for watching. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. Otherwise, best luck out there, guys, and remember, death to the false emperor.